You're listening to Blast Podcasting, episode 16.
JRPG Talk.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Blast Podcasting. I'm Xander.
And this is Anthony.
And, man, this has been such a crazy week from recording this. So I went out of town, Anthony. I went out of town recently, and I went all the way to Kansas City. And one of the things I did want to mention, actually two things I wanted to mention about the trip is, one, we got to go to the Superman Museum in Metropolis.
Yeah, damn you.
You know what's funny is, like, you know, when you think of Metropolis and you think of Superman, and, you know, if you read the comics, you know, Metropolis is like the big city he moved to. So it's like very like New York, very metro. I mean, even the name Metropolis. But it was actually a very small and quaint little country town. I'm like, this is more like Smallville. It was, yeah, it was really interesting, and they had so much Superman stuff. Every year, the kids get their picture taken in front of the giant Superman that's downtown. That's right across the street from a comic book store called the Daily Planet.
Oh shit!
And we got our picture taken there. I ended up buying one thing, and it was a kryptonite rock for like $4. I mean, it was pretty much a rock that someone spray painted green, because it was a total tourist trap.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, because the Daily Planet, I mean, they had some toys, they had some comics, but it was like overly expensive, and it wasn't all Superman stuff, but it was, a lot of it was mostly DC. Like I didn't see any Marvel stuff in there.
My kind of store though.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great store. They had some old toys there. They had like a one of those picture frames, and it had little shards of green glass, and apparently it was like $130, and it was like actual kryptonite that was used in the Superman movie. It was like $130. It had like a certificate of being like, yeah, this is from the Superman movie, and just a lot of history. It was really cool. But yeah, went there, and also I fell in love with Jack in the Box. I actually really miss Jack in the Box. We don't have that here in Wilmington, but
we have one, and I've told you about how unique mine, because mine doesn't just sell hamburgers.
Oh yeah, that's what I love about it. I mean, because you can go there.
No. That's not what I'm saying. They sell beyond the menu.
Oh.
Still go there. Let's say they sell a little bit of a substance that Pee Wee Herman once warned you about.
they sell kryptonite.
I thought you were actually going to say crack cocaine, but yeah.
Oh man, but yeah, I loved Jack in the Box. I mean, I got the freaking tacos, I got the burgers, I got the pitas, the egg rolls, the iced coffee. I was just, it was like every time we had to go eat somewhere, I was like pulling up Google Maps. I'm like, oh, there's a Jack in the Box like 12 minutes away. Let's go to Jack in the Box. Pretty sure the kids were like completely burnt out by the time we were leaving.
What about your girlfriend? Was she burned out?
No, she loves it too. I mean, she was one that, because me and her first met, I told her, I was like, man, I've never been to a Jack in the Box. And she was like, oh man, when we go out of town, we're going to Jack in the Box. And she's the same way. She loves Jack in the Box. So,
you know, I'll be honest. They're okay. The thing that I like to get from there, this is gonna sound stupid as fuck, but I like the teriyaki bowls. I don't know why. I just do. Like, I can get better teriyaki bowls, but yeah. I don't know. You know what it is? It's kind of like Wendy's. Well, but the difference between Wendy's and Jack in the Box, though, I'll be honest, is Wendy's is probably my favorite hamburger fast food place. Mm-hmm. So I like their hamburgers, obviously, but to me, it's their chili. So like their chili is what the teriyaki bowl is to me.
Yeah, that was one thing I didn't get a chance to get. I wanted to try their teriyaki bowls, but I didn't get one.
They're pretty good. They're pretty good.
It's one of those things too. Like, I'm pretty sure if we had Jack in the Box in town, I'd probably eat it a lot and then get completely burn out and never go again. But I think it was just that new feeling, and it was just awesome. But going away from fast food talk into something interesting you mentioned before we did the podcast, you said it was some wrestling thing, so some stuff in wrestling.
Yeah. Okay, so So the big thing is we've got, AEW. You and I have talked about on the show for a while, for the
Mm-hmm.
last few shows, the whole AEW thing and how they're going to be competition. I don't know if you heard what the WWE did.
No, enlighten me.
Okay, you know that you've heard of NXT, right?
Right.
Okay, so for those that don't know, there is actually a third brand aside from SmackDown and Raw called NXT. Now, NXT is the developmental. It was the developmental brand where they get new wrestlers and those wrestlers earn their way to get to the main roster. However, I watch NXT and I can tell you, and I'll be honest, in my opinion, WWE has been getting better lately.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying, in their storytelling and such, like with the build up with the Fiend and just a few other things they've done. There's some of their stuff has gotten really good. But I'm going to tell you this, my friend. With AEW, with the NXT brand, what Vince McMahon just did is NXT is on was on the WWE network, right?
Yeah.
He Okay, and the other thing that makes NXT unique is it's not Vince McMahon has no hands in it. It's all Triple H.
Right.
So if you watch NXT, it's more in line with something like Ring of Honor to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
There's a rawness to it, and it's pretty much like there are a couple of maybe one or two really brief backstage segments, but it's really good. And I will tell you one thing about NXT before I tell you the news. NXT probably has, to me, there's been two matches of the year. Dustin and Cody, which you've seen, right?
Yes.
That's a match of the year. But the hour-long match that they had the night before SummerSlam between Gargano and Cole, that match was an hour-long match, and the way that match worked was it was a best 2 out of 3 pinfalls, but each pinfall had a stipulation. So the first one was a classic wrestling match, the second one was a street ball, but the third one was this cage match just with all kinds of weapons tied to it.
Oh wow.
And I will say that the whole match, all 3 parts of it, was fucking awesome. And the finish, the ending, it's one of the best finishes. I mean, it wasn't the winner I wanted, but it doesn't matter because that match was fucking awesome.
That's cool.
That's one of the best. But anyway, NXT is just that awesome. Well, they announced that NXT is now moving to USA on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. starting September 18th.
Oh wow.
AEW starts its shows at 7 p.m. on Wednesdays on TNT.
Ah.
He did not. Yes.
Hmm.
So what's happened is the AEW's had a few shows happen, and during the 2 show, because they have the big show this week, and I'm sure next episode I'll watch and I'll talk about it.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you this, Xander, they counter program. They're countering programming.
Of
And
course. Yeah.
NXT is probably no longer going to be a developmental program because a lot of the guys on there are probably the faces of the brand. And the guys that they got on there, the 2 that I mentioned, Shayla Baszler, she's awesome. They got Velveteen Dream, who's a real character and probably one of the best promoters. They've got a bunch of guys. Right now, their roster is probably strong enough to hold up its own as much with the SmackDown and Raw brands. So what we're seeing now is WWE really, it's going to be a Wednesday night war. The Monday night wars are back, people. That's the simple fact of it. Except it's on Wednesday nights.
Yeah, I'm trying to go back on Twitter because I could have swore I saw this on Twitter that AEW is bringing back Tony Schiavone.
Yeah, yep, they brought him back too. That is true.
So I mean, it's really interesting. I think it's a great time to be in the pro wrestling. They got the competition. They got the 2 battling it out. I think that's one of the things that even now, like you said, WWE is getting better. I think they're getting better because they're like, oh shit, well we got ratings not just for us, but against some other faction now that's getting some momentum. So I think that's really good.
And I'll be honest. I mean, like on my Mega Sex One Discord, hint hint to go there. Um, I argue a little bit, but a couple guys don't like WWE, and I'm saying, dude, it's getting better. It really is, and I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't very good. It was hit and miss. I'd watch just the pay-per-views, and right now I'm at the point where I'm kind of watching replays of Small Raw and SmackDown. But the real problem that we're gonna have is we're gonna have an oversaturation of shit.
Yeah.
And another wrestling company also announced they're going on TV, and that's the revival of the old North American Wrestling Alliance. They're going to have a TV show too, but a more small studio. You know who owns the NWA, right?
Who's that?
Okay, if you don't know, this is going to shock you. Billy Corgan.
Oh, Billy
And
Corgan.
yes, that
Wow.
Billy Corgan.
Wow, from Smashing Pumpkins. That's right, because he did
Yeah,
buy out.
Smashing Pumpkins.
He did buy out TNA at one point, didn't he? Or he was going to.
He did. He did. He did, but he got out. And that's another thing is TNA, which is Impact. I watch them. Holy shit, they have some of the best storylines right now too. I mean, right now with wrestling, man, there's just just everyone stepping up their game, and everyone thinks it's going to be a repeat of the WCW Attitude Era. No, there's going to be a resurgence in wrestling, but it's going to be more of a resurgence where there's just a lot more choice.
Yeah, I think it's going to be in the sense that it's not going to be like a mirror image of what we saw in the late '90s with WWF, Warzone, and WCW Nitro, but more of a, like you said, more of choices and actual, storylines and things that actually capture people instead of just going with the motions to sell out an arena.
Yeah. The problem, the problem with WWE was they this is going to be an unpopular opinion, but I thought WWE was having solid matches for the most part. The matches weren't the problem that was turning people off. The problem was that people were, how can you put it? The storylines were like, the storylines had no continuity. They don't, they were fizzle out, stuff like that.
Yeah.
They weren't what they would do. And that's the thing, like ROH isn't a lot of story, but they have some consistency. It's not that they weren't having story; it was just the storytelling was bad. But right now, like I'll give you a prime example: The Fiend. You know The Fiend, right, Xander?
Yeah. Yeah.
The way they've been handling him, a lot of people were scared, myself included, on how when he would in-ring debut, they would handle it, but they've handled it fine. And I mean, The Fiend has pretty much been teased since May.
Mm-hmm.
That's funny because I've been watching old Raws from around 96, around January. Mankind was teased. This is crazy. Mankind was teased in vignettes, much like The Fiend was, and didn't show up till April. The Fiend was teased and didn't really show up till the ring till like end of July. And not even in a match. He just was attacking people. And then he's still attacking people, and he's not really he's only had one match at SummerSlam. So, I mean, there are things things happening that are changing, and that's just a good thing. And I'm talking about all of it. I mean, like if you have it, real quick, and I know we'll switch subjects real quick, Xander.
Yeah.
But if you haven't watched Impact, there's no reason you can't. You know where it airs, the weekly show for free? Twitch.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, Impact's really good right now. ROH really good. MLW, New Japan, and even WWE is improving. In AEW, while I have a few issues with them too, as I do WWE, they're good too because their top cards are usually great. So, yeah, there you go. That's kind of the wrestling update. I will talk about it, I think, probably next time because the second biggest AEW show happens this week, and that's All Out.
Nice.
And there's the discussion about CM Punk coming back, so.
Yeah, we'll definitely update on that with the next episode. Getting into the meat and potatoes of this episode, though, we wanted to talk about some JRPGs. Now we've had some episodes where we talked about Final Fantasy, and we've kind of talked a little bit about JRPGs throughout the podcast, but it's going to be all about JRPGs, and I really thought this was a really good topic because I feel like this summer we've had a great influx of not just games, but JRPGs themselves. I mean, recently we had the Grandia remaster come out for the Switch that had Grandia 1 and 2. I still haven't had a chance to get that yet. I've been wanting to get it. How do you like it?
Some people complained about the port, but I think it's a good port.
Yeah.
There's this guy that I really don't like on Kotaku named Jason Shearer. He's very pretentious, but he was crying that there was no quality of life features like turbo mode. And for me, like looking as much, I've only played a little bit of Grandia 1 at least. It doesn't seem that game needs it. There's games that do need a turbo mode, I think, to some degree. But in some instances, this one doesn't. I don't know what you're talking about.
And when you say turbo mode, are you talking about like what they did with the Final Fantasy remasters, like 7 and 9, and even 10, where you can kind of speed up the battles, maybe add a little bit extra like experience points and stuff like that, like they did?
No, just the turbo mode where it speeds up the speed of the game, like the character.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another game that does this is the 2 ports, which I'm going to talk a little bit about today, of an RPG that I've been loving for most of it this year.
Oh yeah,
what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah,
the Trails of Cold Stills game. So,
mm-hmm.
So there's that, and yeah, the Trails of Cold Still game, and yeah, those have a turbo mode, so that's what they're talking about.
Okay, yeah, I mean, to me, that's not that big of a deal. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm eventually going to check out the Grandia collection right now, because I mean, we got the Grandia collection that came out. Next month we have Dragon Quest XI coming out to the Switch, which I'm really happy about because I've waited. I'm a huge Dragon Quest fan, which will lead into my first JRPG experience, but I'm a big Dragon Quest fan, and I wanted to get it for the PS4, but I knew it was eventually going to come out for Switch because it was actually one of the first games announced for the Switch before it was the Switch, back when it was the NX, because, the Dragon Quest was going to be on the 3DS, PS4, and Nintendo Switch, and of course, Of course, it never came out on the 3DS in America, only in Japan. But yeah, it's coming out. It's going to have some extra content as well, and you can switch between the 2D and the 3D look, which is really cool. But what's really interesting for you guys that are listening, if you're interested in playing Dragon Quest XI, I will say go and download the demo, because the demo on the Switch is around 10 hours long. It's a very beefy demo. And
Jesus.
And whatever experience that you have on the demo carries over to the actual game. So I'm wondering if if you play about 10 hours, because it's pretty much the first 10 hours of the game. I'm wondering if you get the actual game, you can just skip that first 10 hours and just go back to where you were. But that would be freaking awesome if you could do that.
You probably can. This is not the first game to do it. You know what was the first? Do you know what the first demo was that did that though?
What was that?
Lunar. Silver Star Story Complete, the PS1 port. There was a demo that was about 6 hours long.
Yeah.
And you can save, obviously, in the demo. But once you got to the end of the demo, you could save it. And then when the main game came out, I never got the demo. I did get the game on release date, which I'll probably talk about today. But yeah, if you saved your game at the end of the demo, when you got the main game, you would resume where you left off from the demo.
That's freaking awesome. Now, Getting into this, I want to ask you, Anthony, and I'm gonna answer too. But I want to know, what was your first experience with JRPGs? Like, what was the first game you played that introduced you to the genre?
Holy fuck. Well, very first JRPGs that I got into was probably stuff on the NES. So I know I did rent stuff like Dragon Quest, aka Dragon Warrior, Final Fantasy 1 is the one that I probably spent the most time with. Fax Xanadu, I don't know if you count that.
I'd count that.
Okay. Which is the first spin-off of the Dragon Slayer series. You know what the second one is, right?
Yeah.
Legend of Heroes, for those that don't know, which is still going on and is what I'm playing now. Trails of Cold Steel, which is part of that. But anyway, Fax Xanadu, Hydlide. I did play Hydlide. Yeah. So those four. I know the U.S. got the first 4 Dragon Quests. It's the Super Nintendo ones that we didn't get, correct?
Right.
Right. Okay. but like my main one was Dragon Warrior, the original.
Now, Dragon Warrior was my first experience with JRPGs. I remember I went to a flea market, which is still here to this day. I was like in second grade, and I bought two NES games. I bought Double Dragon, and then my mom was like, "You can buy one more," because the guy was selling the NES games dirt cheap. So I picked up Dragon Warrior because it had a dragon on it, and I thought dragons were awesome because even back when I was young, I liked medieval stuff like wizards and stuff like that. And I was very surprised because it was like not anything I've played before. It wasn't a platformer. It wasn't, like Mega Man. It wasn't Castlevania or Mario. It was, a game very heavily based in text, and it helped me learn how to read, that's for sure. And it was weird too because it was on like Shakespearean text. Like a lot of people don't remember that or mention it, that the early Dragon Quest games or Dragon Warrior games had like, thy Lord, blah blah blah. It was really
That's right.
it was really crazy. So that was my first experience with JRPGs, and then I went and I played Final Fantasy, and Super Nintendo. I ended up playing like Final Fantasy 2 and 3, and that's just where it all started. Though was Dragon Warrior. That was my first JRPG.
Yeah, yeah. They got you into the genre. With me, those games, I don't know why, but I guess I couldn't. I had a hard time figuring out. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, there was this kid I used to hang out with, and he was a little bit older. And the Garland fight in Final Fantasy One.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't get past it, but I wasn't buying equipment, and he had to show me that. So it
Oh
was
yeah.
stuff like that. Yeah. So I didn't understand those games, and for the longest time, I don't know why, but I just didn't play them. But they would catch my interest, and I would dip my toes in some of them. I mean, I remember renting. I remember renting. What was it? Exile, the Genesis port of that game.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember really digging that game. And then I remember a friend of mine had the Sega channel, and I remember playing a little bit of Shining Force and kind of, discovering that. But I didn't really get heavy into them until '97 when I had a Super Nintendo for the first time, and I remember a friend let me Final Fantasy Mystic Quest of all things. And I liked Mystic Quest. I mean, it didn't really show me what an RPG story can do, though.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of people shit on Mystic Quest, but Mystic Quest for me is what I call like the lazy man's RPG, in the sense that like, and it kind of pertains as well to my latest review I did, Bond of the Skies, that's on Nintendo Switch, because they have a lot of similarities in the sense that there's no thrills, there's no like craziness. It's just a straight story and mechanics of grinding and leveling up. That's a lot what Mystic Quest was. Mystic Quest, had a very, very bare bones story, but it had an awesome soundtrack. Like,
My God.
Yeah, the soundtrack was awesome.
Dude, they have that soundtrack in Final Fantasy Theater Rhythm Final Curtain that I have for the 3DS.
Yeah.
And man, they have the battle themes on it are fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. No, I was about to say. No, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Xander.
Because I was going to say, because I'm going to kind of move a little bit because I don't want us to run too much out of time, because I mean JRPG is like a very broad topic.
Oh my God, we could probably do a follow up like we could do with like half the shows we do.
Yeah, because I just wanted to mention this one thing that I know you and I have in common, and that was the recognition of Final Fantasy VII, but also not just the recognition of Final Fantasy VII for what it was, but the overall commercialization of Final Fantasy VII, how big that game was.
And you know what? I wanted to finish my story, and this is a good way to finish it, because my JRPG story, this kills two birds with one stone. Final Fantasy. So, like I said, I played Mystic Quest that summer of '97. 7 came out, and what was funny was I got 7 and Final Fantasy 3, aka 6, the same day.
Oh wow!
And I told the story, I think maybe on my channel briefly, I don't know. But I had a unique experience of the game that really made me love JRPGs were those two. I played them simultaneously.
Oh, wow. I couldn't do that. Holy shit.
Well, yeah, think about how crazy that is, though. Because both games blew my fucking mind. Like, it wasn't like, oh, I want to play more of 7 because it's graphically advanced. 6 grabbed me just as much.
Yeah.
And to be honest, in a little bit of a way, I do prefer 6. 7's still fucking important though to me.
Yeah.
It's still very important. I still love 7, but 6, back then, I don't know. It was years after I realized that maybe 6 grabbed me more. But, I mean, imagine that, playing both of those at the same time.
Yeah, that's insane. Like, I think Final Fantasy VII was what really helped concrete my choice on that generation of gaming, because I was on the fence of N64 and PlayStation, but I think it was the fact of Resident Evil. Also, WWF Warzone was just so much better on PlayStation. Because I was a sucker for those FMV promos and actual theme songs instead of MIDI files. And then, of course, Final Fantasy VII, because Final Fantasy VII, like I was saying, like it had so much promotion. Like speaking of wrestling, I remember watching Saturday Night WCW, and they would have commercials of Final Fantasy VII, or Pepsi would have Final Fantasy VII on their cans and shit. It was crazy.
Yeah, that game was so heavily promoted, and what it did, a lot of people don't remember. It did a couple of things. I know there's those a group, and overrated. Okay, you can think it's overrated. That's fine, but you cannot fucking tell me it's not important. It's
exactly
one of the most important games released because it did a couple things. One, it opened the flood market to JRPGs from Japan. Because what happened, because this is what made me love JRPGs. Final Fantasy VII, when that came out and I played it, it opened us getting games that we wouldn't get. So, for example, we never got Tales of Phantasia, right, Xander?
Right.
But because of Final Fantasy VII, what did we get? We got Tales of Destiny. We never got Star Ocean 1. But because of Final Fantasy VII, what did we get? Star Ocean 2. We got the ports to Lunar. We got stuff like Grand Stream Saga. We got Square's entire library. A lot of people forget this in the SNES area. We didn't get a lot of. We got a good number of Square games, but we didn't get their entire library.
Yeah, it was like the Super Nintendo definitely had its predominant Square RPGs. Like I'm not definitely not going to take away that, but comparing the Super Nintendo library with RPGs to PlayStation, like PlayStation, it exploded. And we got so many games. It was almost like at one time, it was like every other month was another RPG of some sorts.
Well, how many games of Squares did we not get? We didn't get Live a Live. We didn't get Seiken Densetsu 3 until this year. Think about it. We didn't get, what else did we not get? We didn't get Treasure Hunter G. We didn't get, Bahamut Lagoon. We didn't get the Front Missions. We didn't get the Saga games. There's so much of Square's library that we didn't get. But once Final Fantasy VII hit, we got all those series. We got the Saga games on the PlayStation. We got Xenogears. Xenogears almost didn't come here. A lot of people forget about that. We got Parasite Eve. I mean, we got not only in the entire Square library, but everyone was sending their games over too.
Well, I was about to say, and this is before it became Square Enix. This is back when it was Squaresoft. So you had Enix by themselves, who of course owned the rights to Dragon Quest. And it's funny because you mentioned earlier the Dragon Quest games on the Super Nintendo never came to the States until the DS era, but we did get Dragon Quest or Dragon Warrior 7 on the PS1, and that was really interesting. And that's a series that to this day people say is not as popular as Final Fantasy, but I beg to differ, because I think Dragon Quest has definitely went up the ranks, especially after Dragon Quest 8 on the PS2. I feel like it's really elevated.
Yeah, it has its own charm. I will say this. There's another NX brand. I mentioned it earlier, but people forget it was an NX brand. Star Ocean.
Yeah.
Star Ocean was an NX brand.
Now,
go ahead.
Now, I was going to ask you, Anthony, what is a JRPG, like a well-known JRPG that you still have not played yet? Because I have one that's going to blow your mind.
Trying to think. That's really hard for me.
I mean, you played Final Fantasy VIII, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Because I was trying to remember if you played that, because I know that's coming out very soon, another remaster.
Rumor has it that that remaster has voice acting.
Yeah, it's gonna be weird.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. I'm very curious about that remaster. And like I said, I know, like we have a little group on our Facebook Messenger, and a lot of the guys don't like Final Fantasy VIII. They were actually more excited about a supposed a rumored, I guess not rumored, a rumored remaster of Dragoon
Yeah,
than they
Legend
are,
of Dragoon. Yeah,
which is not one of my favorites.
I never played anything past the demo on Legend of Dragoon.
I,
I had the demo on one of those PlayStation Undergrounds. I had one of those. I played a little bit of it. That was it. I never actually went out and played the game.
famous JRPG though that I never played.
Well, I'll go ahead and tell you.
Go ahead and
Yeah, I'll
go
go ahead
ahead.
and tell you mine real quick because I've played it probably about an hour, but I never actually beat it. But it's one of your favorite JRPGs of all time,
What is that?
Xenogears.
Oh, Xander.
I know. I need to play it. I need to actually dive into it because I played the other okay, I never played the Xenogears Saga games. I never played those. But I did play the Xenoblade games.
Those are good.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed those. But I know Xenogears, I mean, that's like one of your creme la creme JRPGs, and I'm like, that's kind of funny. I still haven't really played that too much.
Yeah, well, it's probably my creme la creme of video games, but that's
Yeah.
a long.
Oh yeah.
We'll have. You know what we should do for the show? I know you're strapped for time, so this is not as easy as some of the other things we planned on doing, but maybe down the line you could play bits of Xenogears here and here, and maybe like in a year we could do a show on it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I mean,
But,
even more so if I get I can put it on my phone and play it on my phone now.
You did make my choice easier because you did play it, and I'm in the same situation with this game, Skies of Arcadia.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was it's a really good game.
I've only played a couple hours. I liked it, but I never beat it for some reason. And I had it on Dreamcast, and at one point I even had it on the GameCube.
Yeah, I mean, there's some JRPGs that and here's the thing that would probably be a good question I would ask you, because this is something of mine. Like, I love the JRPG genre, but I have to kind of get myself in the mood to play JRPGs sometimes because they are very in depth games for the most part. That's like, okay, well, when you first play it, the first hour and a half, you're going to be going through a bunch of crazy shit until the game starts really gelling together and really coming together. I've had that a lot with JRPGs. I mean, that was one of the things that I did not like about Final Fantasy 13. Everyone talks about Final Fantasy 13. One of the things I didn't like about it was the beginning of the game. It was almost like I was being thrown into the story, and I was like, they want me to care about certain characters. I had no idea who they were. I was like, why should I care about this guy? Like, who's Snow? I don't give a fuck about Snow,
Right.
But that's some of the issues that I had with JRPGs. Probably one of the only things. But I was going to ask you, Anthony, what's one of the things that you can't stand about JRPGs?
One thing I can't stand. It's really that's part of it because I've been praising for months these Trails of Cold Steel games.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? I've been playing them since March, and I'm probably about 3/4 through the second game. There's a reason why they take me so long because of what you said. There's days that I need to be in the mood to play it.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying it's a bad game. The Trails of Cold Steel I would highly recommend if you haven't played those. It's just that those games in particular need a lot of investment in them, and you just need to make time. So I do agree with you on that. I guess some JRPGs, another thing is that there are some JRPGs that still go back to archaic designs. As much as I like Dragon Quest, I'm not a fan of the whole church thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still don't mind save points. I'll be honest.
Well, I was going to say Dragon Quest 11 does do autosaves now.
Okay.
Which is cool.
Okay.
I think that's the first time it's had that in this series because it's always been go to the church to go save.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I really like one Dragon Quest that I really liked. You mentioned it earlier was 7, but I like the DS port. The DS port.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, I mean that really took that game to a whole new level. It's I know this is going to be controversial, but it's just as good as 8, and I'm a big fan of 9 too. So I have 7, 8, and 9 on my DS, 3DS.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. But anyway, yeah, just some archaic designs. It's kind of like, let's talk about Earthbound. And I know some people are like, well, that's a game in 1995. No, its design was even archaic for 1995.
It really was.
I'm sorry, but it was. It's not. Its story is crazy. I will say it does deserve its props for its story because it's just so bizarre and weird, and there's a darkness to it that make it interesting. But its UI is trash.
Yeah, and the battle system. I mean, you got to take into consideration when Earthbound came out. You had Chrono Trigger. You had Final Fantasy II. I mean, you had all these other JRPGs that were out when Earthbound came out. I mean, there was a reason why, other than how weird it was, there was a reason why it wasn't really that embraced back then. I mean, a lot of people they kind of like, oh yeah, the game just didn't sell well. Well, it didn't sell well because it was dated when it came out. Like it was
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't get good reviews. People forget that too. I mean, you know what, Xander? Final Fantasy VI was out by the time we got Earthbound.
Yeah.
I mean, for fuck's sake, Final Fantasy VI, which it was the first game to have an optimize option. Remember, an item that made equipping easy.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a lot of quality of life stuff in those games by the time that that Earthbound came out. And I played Earthbound about 3 years ago. And I'm not saying I did enjoy it. I'm just saying people don't look at its flaws. I'll be honest though, I don't mind its battle system though. Because you know how like there's some quirkiness to, I'll give you an example. You know how the battle system, the life bar has that like thing that it scales down?
Yeah, I was going to say one of the things I like about Earthbound's battle system too is if you battle an enemy that's way too low, you'll automatically win.
Oh yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, that, and then I was gonna say, okay, so you have your life and it's like on a roller,
Mm-hmm.
Say an enemy hits you with an attack that takes you all the way to 0, but you know what's cool about the game that it does?
What's that?
It does. If you say it does that to a character and then it's another character and it's a healer, if you heal that character before the roller gets down to 0, you won't die. It'll go back up once it hits 0.
Oh wow.
Yeah, you won't have. Yeah, so there's just some weird stuff, and that final boss, and I'll give it credit too. That final boss is one of the most fucked up things in any game.
Oh yeah.
But I guess archaic designs in some RPGs that still linger. That's kind of my thing. And like as much as I praise Trails, I have some UI problems with that game. There's a thing where like you use a healing item.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll completely take you back to the main menu.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, don't let it deter you. The game is amazing, but there's just some weird UI things like that to me.
Yeah.
That it does. But, yeah, otherwise, I guess it's just some archaic UI shit sometimes in JRPGs that bugs me.
Yeah, that also, I don't like it when JRPGs are too basic in storytelling. Mm-hmm. When it follows too many cliches, like you're playing as a guy that's like, we've all seen the character who's like coming of age. He's a kid and he's growing up to become a man, and his village gets attacked. Like we've all seen that. Or the hero is, has amnesia, can't remember what's going on, and I mean some of that stuff. Like I think if it's executed well, it's cool. But sometimes I'm just like, oh my god, I've seen this so many times.
Right. Sometimes it's not. You know what though? That's the thing. Cliches are cliches for a reason because they can work.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like, let's go back to Xenogears. Xenogears has all those cliches: the amnesic character and the village that gets attacked.
Yeah, but sometimes it's done well though.
But it's done well, and I don't care. This is not a spoiler. You end up destroying the fucking village in Xenogears.
So that's cool.
So just stuff like that. But the coming of age stuff can be done well. I'll give you. We were just talking about Grandia, right?
Yeah.
Why do so many people like Grandia 1? We'll leave Grandia 2 because I don't really count it in this group. But let's. Why do people really like Grandia 1 and Lunar? And there's a reason I'm comparing it.
Is it the
go ahead.
hero? I was about to say, is it the just relatable hero?
Yeah, because and they were both designed by Game Arts, but both Justin and Alex, you know, Justin and Grandi and Alex and Lunar, they were both normal kids with big dreams.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's pretty cliche. Alex wanted to be the Dragon Master, and Justin wanted to be an adventurer like his father who disappeared. Right,
Yeah.
but even though those are cliches, for whatever reason, there's a certain charm that both of those games have that make it different.
Yeah.
You know, like for Alex, he does become the fucking Dragon Master, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of things that hold it up is just the stuff he goes through, and he really does grow up. It's not the thing with a lot of coming of age stories in JRPGs is that they grow up by gaining power. Alex and Justin don't. They go through experiences that grow them up, and they also gain power in the game.
Yeah, that's always a good thing. I always like seeing that. I like seeing, the character development and seeing things like that. I mean, that's one of the things that I'll go back to and say about Earthbound that makes Earthbound so interesting is, it was set in a different time. It was modern. Some people may even compare it to like the Goonies. Like it feels like the Goonies RPG. It's like this kid that's going on an adventure, and seeing these kids go through what they went through, really what makes that game special, and those games as well. If it has a cliche, but at the same time, it's executed really well.
I want to go to the Trails game now. I'm being very careful because this is one. I know we're loose about spoilers. I don't want to spoil anything for these games because we have a third one coming out, and they're kind of getting a bigger audience because of these PS4 remasters. What I appreciate about these games is the first game. This is not a spoiler. You basically go to school, right? You go to a military school, and in the story, you got to complete the military school. You go through 2 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think would be the easiest way to do the second game?
I guess graduating.
Doing the second year, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. The first game is about the first year, but the second game is not about the second year. It takes a swerve. It takes a really big fucking swerve at the end of the first one. And I will say this: it's absolutely astounding. I'm like, I was telling Darkscream and BioPhoenix and my friend Nightman, they all beat the game. But this is also, I hope this is not a spoiler. I don't think it is. It's the first game has its own structure. It has a very Persona-like structure. You go through days and such like that, right?
Yeah.
The second game, it has a structure through its first half, and then it has a structure through its second half. That changes again.
Huh.
And what I mean by that is, what's interesting is usually you have a lot of games that use the story to complement the gameplay. For whatever reason, Falcom successfully does this. They make the gameplay complement the story, and it works well. They change the gameplay structure to complement the story they're telling.
Oh, that's cool.
And that's what makes those games so great. And I mean, right off the bat, the thing that'll catch you if you play these games is just the characters, man. Like right away, like within the first 2 hours, it is a slow build up. And what's interesting about Trails is it starts with something in the future, and then it flashes back to the beginning, and then you get to that part in the future while you play the game, obviously. So it does that, It flashes forward, then it flashes back. But you get to know these characters, and within the first 2 hours, the characters' conflicts are established, where they're going to go with the characters. And those characters, there are 9 of them, they're all fucking fleshed out really well. I mean, they are fleshed out, and they're still being fleshed out in the second game. I mean, even their backstories are still being fleshed out. You really got to play this.
Yeah, I was about to say I gotta check. I mean, I got the first Trails of Cold Steel on PS3, but I really need to just go ahead and just get the PS4 remaster.
And with the third game coming out, I'm already settled. That's an instant buy. That comes out in October, and that's an instant buy. And I just need to know when the fuck Falcom's going to release the final game, because there's a fourth one.
Oh, wow.
Fourth and final. And that's what's cool about it too, is what's really cool is they really do episodic gaming, and in that way, the first Trails feels like the first season of a TV series, and then the second game feels like the second season.
Yeah.
That's the best way I can put it. So I don't know. Um, but there are a lot of good JRPGs. I mean, we even got what, Fire Emblem, but would you
Yeah.
count that because that's a strategy game?
Yeah. I mean, I'd count it. It's a strategy RPG.
We've got Fire Emblem. We got Tales of Vesperia, one of the best games re-released. We've got Tales of Berseria, one of the best Tales game ever, in my opinion, a couple of years ago. I mean, JRPGs have really made a resurgence this generation.
It really has. It feels to me. It feels almost like the PS2 era all over again.
Or even, even to some degree, the PS1 with how much stuff we're getting. And I'll even say I know some people won't like to hear this, but Final Fantasy 15 was a great game in my opinion too.
It was. It was very different, but it was good. It was probably one of the best Final Fantasies we've had in a very long time.
And I beat it. I beat vanilla Final Fantasy 15. I know I have all the DLC except for the last one, the Arden one.
Yeah.
But I need to download that, which I will. But once I do, I would like to revisit it because I've heard that there have been patches, and I even bought the Royal Edition stuff, that so much more story has been added into the game, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a game that I need to revisit. So, but I mean, we got that. We got the 7 remake. The 7 remake, I think, is really going to do what the first one did.
Oh, yeah?
I know. I really do believe that with the hype and everything, it's really going to make JRPGs a little bit more mainstream. Look at how well Persona 5 did, and one of the best games this gen, in my opinion. But Persona 5 really was the first SMT game, in my opinion, to break the mainstream wall. And it's still
I agree.
an SMT. Yeah, well, I mean, look how much that blew up in the media. I mean, it didn't blow up to Final Fantasy 7 levels or even but maybe to regular other Final Fantasy levels it did. I mean, look, remember all the hype 2 years ago?
Yeah, I know. I agree. Persona 5 really exploded the series because I mean, hell, we got Joker on Smash Brothers.
Oh yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah, I mean that game really exploded it. I would say Persona is a AAA title. I know some people will disagree, but it is. It's up there with Final Fantasy as AAA status. I don't like that term because there's a lot of games I think are better than most, so quote unquote AAA. But still, just looking at it from that standpoint, it is.
Well, I was gonna say, well, we're running close to end time. I think our ending statement, I would say, I'm gonna ask you, Anthony, is to what's an RPG right now that you would tell the listeners they need to go out and play? I kind of probably already know the answer to this, but yeah.
Well, I'll say Trails.
Yeah.
Of course, obviously. But I think another one, and I the only reason I haven't played it as much is because I want to beat Trails first, and I really want. Well, I've only played about 10 hours of this one. Is probably, I would say, if you have a Switch, Fire Emblem is a good one. Those are two really good ones if you haven't played them. And I would say another one that you can get super cheap right now is Tales of Berseria. I mean, that's one of the best Tales games out there. Period. And of that whole series.
Oh yeah. Me, I would say right now, definitely. I've heard nothing but great things about Fire Emblem, but I haven't personally played it.
Okay.
But I would say right now, definitely download the Dragon Quest 11 demo on Switch.
Oh yeah.
Download it. Like I said, it's 10 hours and it carries over. It's a great introduction.
Funny story. I sold my PS4 version because I hardly played it to pre-order the Switch version.
That's funny.
Yeah, that's bad. I shouldn't have bought the PS4 version, but that's okay. But yeah, that's a good one. What about an old one that you would recommend that's easily available?
I would probably say, hey, go download Final Fantasy IX.
Yeah. And if you want to know more about our thoughts about Final Fantasy IX, if this is like your first time listening, go back a few episodes. We did do a whole episode about Final Fantasy IX. 10's another good one I would recommend. 7.
Yep.
And there, I mean, like we said, there's the Grandia collection, Tales of Vesperia is out. There's the Mana collection. There's a lot of, I mean, even old JRPGs are easily available in pretty good packages. So there you go.
Indeed, indeed. And how about you guys that are listening? Leave us a comment below. Tell us one of your favorite RPGs of all time, and tell us one of your least favorite RPGs. We want to hear some RPGs that you're not a big fan of and why. That would be a really interesting topic, and we'll definitely
Hold on. I got to ask you, what is a JRPG you hate? Real quick, we won't go on it. Just say, name one that you absolutely despise.
Oh shit. I'm trying to think. Beyond the Beyond. No, it's not Beyond. It's Infinite Undiscovery on the Xbox 360. I couldn't stand that game.
Why is that, real quick?
It was just too pandering.
Okay.
Had way too many characters.
Okay, mine is from a company that was not AAA when this game came out, but is now AAA. It's a FromSoft game, that is. Go ahead and guess it. I think you know what it is.
I think I'm looking at it. It was on the 360, right?
Yep.
It's that Kingdom game. I can't remember the name of it.
No. Enchanted Arms.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, Thousand Arms is a good RPG from the PS1 era. Don't want to mix it with that drivel that is fucking Enchanted Arms, which is not only one of my worst JRPGs, one of the worst games ever played. Fuck that pile of shit. The end.
And with that, guys, this is going to include another episode of Blast Podcasting. But yes, be sure to leave a comment below. Tell us some of your favorite JRPGs. Tell us some of your least favorite, maybe some JRPG stories. We'd love to hear from you guys. As always, thanks for listening, and we'll be blasting off to the next episode.